Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about something almost everyone struggles with at some point: procrastination. You know the feeling. You have an important task to do, maybe it's studying, writing an email, cleaning your room, or starting a big project, but instead, you scroll on your phone, watch one more video, or suddenly feel a strong need to organize your desk. You tell yourself, I'll start in 5 minutes, but somehow, those 5 minutes turn into an hour. In this episode, we'll explore why procrastination happens from a scientific point of view and, more importantly, what you can actually do to stop it. By the end of this episode, you'll have several simple, practical strategies that you can start using today. Let's begin with a basic question: what is procrastination? Procrastination is not just being lazy. It is the habit of delaying tasks even when we know that the delay will cause problems. This is important to understand because many people feel guilty or ashamed when they procrastinate. They think, I'm just lazy or I don't have enough discipline. But research in psychology shows that procrastination is more about emotions than about laziness. When we look at the science, procrastination is closely connected to how our brain deals with stress, fear, and discomfort. Imagine you have to start a difficult assignment. The task feels big, maybe confusing, or maybe you are afraid that you will fail. Your brain sees this as something unpleasant. To protect you from stress, it tries to avoid that feeling. So instead of starting the task, you choose something easier and more enjoyable, like checking social media or making a cup of coffee. This is connected to a part of the brain called the limbic system, which is responsible for emotions and the desire for immediate pleasure. Another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is responsible for planning, decision-making, and thinking about the future. When you procrastinate, the emotional part of your brain often wins over the rational, planning part. You choose short-term comfort instead of long-term success. Understanding this is powerful because it shows that procrastination is not a personal failure. It is a natural reaction of the brain. But the good news is that there are ways to train your brain and create habits that make it easier to start and finish tasks. The first science-based tip is to make tasks smaller and more specific. When a task feels too big, your brain sees it as a threat. For example, write a research paper sounds huge and stressful. But if you change that to write the introduction for 10 minutes, the task suddenly feels much easier to start. Our brains are more willing to begin something that looks simple and limited. This is sometimes called the chunking technique. You break a large project into small, clear steps. Instead of one big mountain, you create a path of small hills. Each small step you complete gives your brain a sense of progress and even a small reward in the form of dopamine, the chemical connected to motivation and pleasure. This makes it easier to continue with the next step. Another helpful strategy is the 5-minute rule. The idea is simple: promise yourself that you will work on a task for just 5 minutes. That's all. After 5 minutes, you are allowed to stop if you really want to. The science behind this method is that starting is often the hardest part. Once you begin, your brain adjusts, and the task often feels less scary than you imagined. In many cases, after 5 minutes, you will decide to keep going because you are already in the flow. A third tip is to design your environment to reduce distractions. Our brains are very sensitive to the things around us. If your phone is next to you and you see notifications, it is much harder to focus. This is not only about willpower. Studies show that even having your phone in sight can reduce your ability to concentrate because part of your attention is always thinking about it. So, one simple change is to put your phone in another room or turn on airplane mode while you work. You can also use website blockers or apps that limit your access to social media during certain hours. By removing temptations from your environment, you make it easier for your brain to stay focused on the task in front of you. Let's talk now about motivation, because many people say, I'll start when I feel motivated. The problem is that motivation often comes after action, not before it. Waiting to feel motivated is like waiting to feel warm before you turn on the heating. In reality, starting a task creates a sense of progress, and that progress builds motivation. One scientific explanation for this is something called the progress principle. Researchers have found that people feel more motivated and happier when they see that they are making progress on meaningful work. Even small progress can increase your energy and interest. This means that instead of waiting to feel ready, it is more effective to start with a tiny step and let motivation grow naturally. Another reason we procrastinate is perfectionism. Some people delay tasks because they want to do them perfectly. They are afraid that their work will not be good enough, so they keep waiting for the right moment or the perfect idea. But this often leads to stress and last-minute work, which usually produces worse results. A useful strategy here is to give yourself permission to create a bad first draft. This is especially helpful for writing, studying, or any creative work. Tell yourself that the first version does not need to be good, it just needs to exist. Once you have something on the page, you can improve it later. This reduces the pressure and makes it easier to start. Deadlines also play a big role in procrastination. When a deadline is far away, our brain feels less urgency. This is connected to a concept in psychology called temporal discounting. It means that we value immediate rewards more than future rewards. Finishing a project next month feels less important than watching a fun video right now. One way to fight this is to create artificial deadlines or mini deadlines for yourself. For example, if you have to complete a project in 2 weeks, you can decide that by the end of the first week you will finish the outline, and by the third day you will collect all the materials. You can also tell a friend or colleague about these deadlines. When other people know about your goals, you feel a stronger sense of responsibility to follow through. This brings us to another powerful tip: accountability. Humans are social creatures. We often work harder when we know that someone else is watching or expecting results. You can use this by studying with a friend, joining a study group, or simply telling someone what you plan to do and when you will do it. Some people even send a message to a friend at the end of the day to report what they have completed. This small social pressure can significantly reduce procrastination. Let's also talk about energy and physical health, because procrastination is not only about psychology. Your ability to focus and work depends on sleep, nutrition, and movement. If you are tired, hungry, or stressed, your brain will naturally look for easier and more comfortable activities. Getting enough sleep, drinking water, and taking short breaks to move your body can improve your concentration and reduce the desire to avoid tasks. Another science-based method is called implementation intentions. This is a simple but powerful planning technique. Instead of saying, "I will study more," you create a clear plan in the form of, "If X happens, then I will do Y." For example, if it is 7 p.m., then I will sit at my desk and review my notes for 20 minutes. This type of plan helps your brain connect a situation with a specific action, which makes it more likely that you will follow through. Our brains like routines and habits. When you repeat the same action in the same situation many times, it becomes automatic. Over time, you will not need to use as much mental energy to start the task because it will feel like a normal part of your day. It is also important to talk about self-talk, or the way you speak to yourself in your mind. If you often think, "I'm so lazy" or "I always fail," this negative self-talk can reduce your confidence and increase stress, which leads to more procrastination. Instead, try to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend. You can say, "This task is difficult, but I can start with one small step," or "I don't have to do everything perfectly, I just need to begin." Research shows that self-compassion, being kind and understanding toward yourself, can actually improve motivation. When you are less afraid of judging yourself, you are more willing to try, even if you might make mistakes. Another useful idea is to connect your tasks to your personal values and long-term goals. For example, studying for an exam might feel boring in the moment, but if you remind yourself that education is important for your future career or your personal growth, the task can feel more meaningful. Our brains are more motivated to work on tasks that we see as connected to something important in our lives. You can even write down why a task matters to you. A simple sentence like, "I am doing this because it will help me become a better engineer, teacher, or designer," can change how you feel about the work. Before we finish, let's quickly review the key science-based tips we discussed today. First, break big tasks into smaller, clear steps. Second, use the 5-minute rule to make starting easier. Third, design your environment to reduce distractions. Fourth, remember that motivation often comes after you start working. Fifth, allow yourself to create imperfect first drafts instead of waiting for perfection. We also talked about creating mini deadlines, using accountability with other people, taking care of your physical health, making clear if-then plans, improving your self-talk, and connecting your daily tasks to your long-term values. Procrastination is something that many people struggle with, and it does not disappear overnight. But with these strategies, you can slowly retrain your brain and build habits that make it easier to take action, even when you do not feel like it. Each time you choose to start a task instead of avoiding it, you strengthen that habit and make it easier for your future self. Remember, you do not need to become a perfect, always productive person. The goal is simply to reduce procrastination enough that you can move forward with the things that matter to you. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you found these tips helpful, you might want to share this episode with a friend who also struggles with procrastination. And as always, try to practice one small change from today's episode this week, and see how it affects your focus and productivity. I'll talk to you again in the next episode.